Hello and welcome to episode number 61 of Behind the Impact. I'm your host, Jeremy Brown. In this episode, Carlos Cuyas, the social impact lead at O9 Solutions, joins the show. Carlos, welcome to Behind the Impact.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's an honor to be here.
I am so glad to be having this conversation with you. Your career journey is so interesting. You don't have the traditional background of a practitioner in social impact. I want to hear that career journey for you and how you even got into this wonderful world we call social impact. Can you give me that story?
Oh, definitely. So you're right. I actually studied business administration, and my whole career has been in business. I started in demand planning, changed to supply planning, sales and operations planning, and in all those roles, always implementing technology or having this project management of implementing technology. And that's how I arrived at Online Solutions. But nothing to do with social impact, right? Really, really business focused. But I've always believed business can be one of the most powerful forces for positive change. And I actually, in my spare time, organize for my companies volunteering initiatives, mentoring in my city, things like that. So I've always been involved, but not from a career perspective. Online Solutions had social impact as one of their company values. Um, but it was never professionalized. The founders wanted from the beginning, had it very clear, social impact is important for us, but there was no function or nothing being done at the beginning, the first years of the company. And at a certain point, they decided, hey, it's time to, if we say this is a company value, we need to put some action into it. And they wanted to professionalize, create a department. And that's when I said, hey, I would love to do that. I'm very passionate about it. I don't have experience, as I said, but I can deliver something. Let's build something together. And they were very understandable. They knew there was a change I wanted to do personally and in my career. They were very supportive, and that's how I started from really, really nothing.
That passion for social impact and organizing at some of your other companies, where did that come from? Is there an experience that you had in your life or career that pushed you towards the world of social impact?
Cannot pinpoint a single event or time in my life that said this is what I want to do. It's more maybe how I've been raised up. Um, from my mom, my dad, my family, they've always been generous and have transmitted me this earth. Like, listen, you're living your life, but you're not living your life just for you. You're part of a bigger community. Um, you need to respect that and own that as your responsibility too. And that's how it all started. It came a little bit naturally because that's how I was raised up, literally. I cannot think of a single event that made me do that. It's part of how I've been told we should live our lives. And if you want me to live right, then if you believe that, like if I was raised like that, corporates are in a unique position to transform that because they have people, the technology, and at least in my experience, the capacity of building huge projects globally, which is what we need, no? If you want to have that societal transformation. So individuals can do a lot, governments can do a lot, nonprofits are amazing, but corporates, they play a wonderful role in that aspect. So that's how I link who I am with what I'm doing now somehow.
When you think about the companies you previously worked at, and you mentioned that you were organizing there, what did you do at those previous companies in terms of social impact?
It was most your traditional volunteering events. So we've done uh, beach cleanups, and then I'm the one organizing it. We've done the one I really like was, for example, one that we did mentoring migrant entrepreneurs. So I said there was an organization here in Barcelona that helped migrants that wanted to start a business in connecting with the local environment. And as I mean, at my company, we were some consultants and very clever people that could support those entrepreneurs. And it was very cool because cannot imagine them building the next Apple of the world or the next big company. They were still really starting a bar, a laundry, something really small at the beginning, and how us from the corporate world met with them and say, okay, this is what you can do. This is our ideas for how can you manage your finances or your marketing or no skills-based volunteering. Basically, that was pretty cool. But it was more in that area. Some response campaigns I've also organized in my previous companies and even at online solutions where something happened in the world and let's say, hey, let's all work together to uh, help that particular event. With the food pantry, where we get the supermarkets and ask people to donate food and then go to the pantry and relocate that. Things that more traditional volunteering, that's how I started, or the things I was doing at spare time.
And speaking of O9 Solutions, can you give me a little background about the company and what you all do?
Yeah, definitely. So Online Solutions provides an AI-powered platform that helps businesses make better and basically faster decisions. Our platform is called the Online Digital Brain, and it connects planning across every function in the company: strategy, supply chain, finance, and operations. So basically, our customers can work smarter and respond faster to this world that is constantly changing. Basically, that's what we're trying to do.
One thing that I love about your role right now and the fact that this is your first time building a formal impact function, you're doing it from scratch. So you're building the function itself and going through all the challenges that come with building a function. What has been so far the most challenging thing about building a function from scratch?
Good question. I think the biggest challenge has been balancing the short-term needs and execution of the activities of social impact with a long-term vision and strategy. Because when you start a social impact function from scratch, as you say, people naturally want to see activity. Employees want volunteering opportunities. Leaders want to see progress and things happening. Partners even want to collaborate with you. So you need to deliver meaningful programs from day one, basically, when you build that program. But at the same time, you are asking yourself much bigger questions like what role should social impact play in the company? How can I support the business strategy? Where can we create value that's genuinely unique to O9? And those answers generally take time. It's not what you do first when you build something from scratch. They come from testing to listening to people, getting ideas, learning as the company evolves and as the role evolves. One phrase that often come back to me is that activities, social impact activities, create moments that are wonderful, but the strategy creates momentum, and that's what we need. Early on, like when I started, it's perfectly fine to have a portfolio of great initiatives. And in fact, this is what I did at the beginning. I launched, I remember, online plans, online walks, online volunteers, online cleans, all that in 1 year where we will go out, plant trees, and then we'll do this and that, pushing for activities and keep pushing employees to participate and do all those stuff, which are great. But over time, those initiatives need to become part of a bigger story and not isolated things that we do. And a story that's connected to the company's purpose. It's not something that can live aside of the company. Something that people can relate to, and ultimately that value that is going to create for the society, right? That it's unique to where we are as a company. For me, as a summary, what is the biggest challenge? The challenge hasn't been running programs that we've done, and we've done quite successfully, I believe. It's been making sure that every program teaches us something and moves us one step closer to building a social impact strategy that is authentic. It's online strategy, not social impact strategy, but actually our strategy. And yeah, the hardest part isn't getting people excited about doing good. It's deciding also what not to do. So from all those activities, we've dropped many. Although some of them were very successful, but trying to build that vision and that story, it's been, yeah, one of the biggest challenges, I would say.
Take me back to the moment when you raised your hand and said that you wanted to take on this role of social impact and build the strategy and the function. Take me back to that moment in time and talk a little bit about where you even started in terms of like how to even, this is your first time doing this. Like, where did you even begin?
Yeah, so honestly, it's been one of the most fun parts of my career because I raise the hand, as you say, build something from scratch, and it's like basically being a small entrepreneur or building something new from scratch inside a company. You don't inherit something or you don't replace someone and keep going rolling. You get to write it from scratch, from everything. And at the beginning, everything is an opportunity. There are no established programs, there are no governance, there's no roadmap, everything. You get to experiment whatever you want. And you learn through that experimentation. And you build something that, or you try to build something that fits the company culture. And of course, it's not always easy. You have to earn credibility before you, for example, ask for budget, which is a topic that it's always a concern for social impact practitioners. And every successful initiative becomes proof of that function that you are creating from scratch deserves to exist. It's been created and you need to prove it basically that it was a good decision to create a social impact department for your company. But that's also, in my point of view, what makes it very rewarding. Every conversation, every partnership, every program helps to build what the role and the function will become in the future. And for me, that's been the exciting part. Not just launching volunteering events or donation campaigns, but helping build something that can eventually become, hopefully it will, become strategic for the company and the business.
You mentioned experimentation. How often are you experimenting with programs or just ideas in general?
Very often, but I also want to say something. I knew and I know there is no need to reinvent the wheel in a sense that there's so many companies doing incredible work in corporate social impact. So one of my first priorities was to learn from the best in class rather than trying to assume I had all the answers or I had to find out all the answers for building a social impact um, strategy. So one of the first things I did when I started my role as social impact lead at Online Solutions was to sign the Pledge 1% commitment. And beyond the commitment itself, which is wonderful, it basically opened me the opportunity of talking to incredible community practitioners. Through 1%, through Pledge 1%, for example, I had the opportunity to participate in the We Pledge 1% cohort, which was facilitated by Twilio, and gave me the opportunity to learn directly from practitioners who had already built successful social impact programs at companies of all different sizes. Because in that cohort, we had from really startups to bigger organizations. And it was incredibly valuable, Jeremy, because people were very open about what had worked, what didn't, and all the lessons they've learned along the way. I could apply then to my new role. So exactly, not reinventing the wheel, but checking out there what has worked and what is best practices has been key for me. And thanks to that initial conversations with We Pledge, I launched actually the employee benefit program that we have at the moment. That includes matching donations, dollars for doers, volunteering time off, and gave me a start. That was my start. So it was very interesting, very interesting. But the trick, I also don't want to sound like it's not to copy paste someone else's program. You need to also take those best practices and adapt them to your company, own company culture, your own priorities. As I said, your stage of growth is not the same on the maturity of the company. So yeah, learn from the best, but also adapt. So yes, one thing I love about the corporate social impact is that how collaborative it is. haven't come across uh, doors being closed from people are incredibly generous in sharing what worked and what hasn't. And I've benefited enormously from that openness. And I hope I can pay it forward to others building their own functions with this conversation with you, Jeremy, and in any further conversations that I have.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about this field too, is how generous practitioners are with their time, their knowledge. To your point, there's very few doors that have been closed. Most doors are open. Most people in this space want to chat with each other and help each other out because it's a hard field to be in, especially when, you know, times get tough and if you don't have a durable impact function, then you could be on the chopping block to get laid off, for example, which is what we're seeing here in the United States quite a bit. And so that's something that I've also found unique about this field too, is just a generosity. So you talked a little bit about Pledge 1% and learning from others. When it comes to taking those best practices from companies like Twilio, for example, and applying it to O9, what are some of the ideas that you have implemented that you learned from other practitioners?
As I said, mainly it was the employees benefit program. So the dollars for doers, we reward our employees with $15 per hour volunteered on their personal time. We also offer them 20 hours of volunteering time off per year. We have matching donations, dollar per dollar, up to $500 every year. And that is basically something that I had not experienced in my career before. I saw it from Twilio in this case, but with the other companies that were part of that first cohort, we pledged 1%, that I implemented it and successfully achieved and rolled out at O9. That was very, very interesting. And the second part, I would say, because that's more on the execution part, more on the strategy part, the link of social impact with business strategy and how the role of company purpose in social impact.
Let's talk about that a little bit more. One of the topics I've been having a lot of conversations around is the idea of connecting impact to business outcomes or driving business value. It seems like a lot of practitioners right now are starting to explore what that actually looks like within their own businesses. And it goes back to the whole thing about building a more durable impact function. For you in this role at O9 Solutions, how are you thinking about connecting your work to the overall business and what the business is trying to achieve?
That's my biggest work at the moment, is that connection from the social impact program that we've built, all the activities that we do with business strategy. And I think, well, I don't know, but I want to believe that's a natural evolution for many companies because I think most social impact journeys start with activities because they're tangible. You launch the volunteering day or the volunteering week or volunteering month. Different companies have different days. A donation campaign, a matching gift, like I did, right? And those initiatives are valuable because they create engagement and you show employees that the company really cares. So, but after a while, you have to take a step back and ask a more strategic question. Why these activities? What makes our company uniquely positioned to make a difference? And for me, that shift from doing good is the shift from doing good to really creating impact. And at O9, as I said, we're currently thinking less about what can we sponsor or what can we donate to, and more about where our company has, as I said, a unique ability to contribute. We have incredibly talented people. We have cutting edge AI technology, and we have relationship with some of the world's biggest and leading companies in all sectors. So the question is, how do we combine those strengths, business strength, to create impact that we can only create? connection of business with social impact. Again, it sounds repetitive, but it's really what I'm working on. And I really believe that's the key for a successful program that will last not 5, not 10, but as long as the business lasts. And that doesn't mean moving away from employee volunteering or giving. Is the audience mustn't get me wrong here. Those will always be important. It's important in all strategy because they build culture and give people opportunities to contribute to causes they care about, which might not be the same as the company is positioned to contribute. So those are important. But alongside that, we are defining a few strategic areas where we can create deeper, longer term value by aligning our social impact efforts with our expertise and our purpose as a business. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say, Jeremy, is I don't think the goal is to have more programs. The goal is to have a clear point of view on the role of your company in society. And once you have that clarity, every program, every partnership, and every basically investment that you do in social impact becomes much more intentional and has much more buy-in internally and externally from leadership, from finance, from whoever is involved in the decision making, but customers and partners.
And when you look at your current strategy as it is today, how close are you to achieving that, achieving the connection between impact and driving business outcomes and driving business value overall?
I think I'm very close. But one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that social impact shouldn't exist in isolation. It should be rooted on the company's purpose, right? I said, right? That's why rather than starting by writing the social impact mission like a statement, I started the conversation someone else. The first step was working with our founders, um, Chakri and Sanjeev, and the executive leadership to define a clear company purpose, which might not be linked to charity. I'm talking about company purpose, why the company exists beyond making money. We are for profit, so we are there to create money, but there is a reason why we exist beyond creating more money. And I believe purpose has to come from the top. It can't just be owned by the social impact team or the HR team. It needs to reflect why the company exists and the value it wants to create in the world. So without that executive sponsorship from founders, from top management, purpose risks becoming just another statement on our website or another beautiful slide and not being really implemented. So that was the first step, and we're working on it. And once that company purpose is clear, sorry, it doesn't mean that we until now didn't have a company purpose, but I'm trying to make it more clear and more specific and communicate it better. But once that company purpose is clear, the second step that I'm working on is to building a social impact mission, now with yes, that brings that purpose into life. But that step for me was important, not social impact and then how to link it to company business, but actually defining the purpose of the business and then creating a social impact as to that. In other words, Jeremy, the social impact strategy shouldn't define the company's purpose. It should be an expression of it. I don't know if that makes sense put this way, but it should answer the question, how do we use our people, our technology, our resources basically as a company to turn the company's purpose into meaningful action? And that is the role of social impact. That's what we're doing. And I think that's important because it creates alignment. First, employees understand why certain causes care more for the company than others. Leadership sees social impact as part of the business strategy rather than something separate that costs them money. And externally, as I said before, customers and partners experience the company like in our relationship with them, a company that is consistent with what it says and what it does. That I think it's important. When purpose comes first, social impact becomes much more than a collection of program or of initiative or volunteering activities. It becomes one of the ways the company delivers value to the world.
One of the gaps that I'm seeing in the field of corporate impact is executives not fully buying in to social impact, or ESG or sustainability. And I truly believe that one of the reasons they are not buying in is because there's a gap between what they think of the work and what they know of the work and what practitioners are conveying about their work, whether it's a strategy or the programs, etc. I'm curious to learn more about how you communicate your work to your leadership team. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. And uh, you, I see it when, and it's not me, Carlos Cuyas, saying it. There's a lot of research behind it. There's a lot of white papers being written. When corporate impact is done well, it strengthens the business itself. It helps attract and retain talented people. Builds a stronger culture because people feel they are contributing to something bigger than their day-to-day role, their emails they send every day. It creates trust with customers and partners that they want to work with companies that have a clear defined purpose. And it encourages leaders to think beyond quarterly results and consider long-term value, and they're creating for society as well as for their shareholders, right? For the board. That exists. And you ask me, how do I communicate that? Well, I didn't manage to do it yet. It's something I do believe, and it's something that I need to work on. Translate that whole research statistics that purpose-driven companies outperform companies that are not purpose-driven. It is proven. So now I need to prove it internally, and that's my work and the work of all practitioners.
When it comes to communicating that to your leadership team, and I know you said that you're early on in that process. Do you have an idea of how you would go about communicating why social impact matters to O9?
The good thing about online is that I don't need to convince the founders and leadership about that because it's something that was given to me. They already believe it. It's more about I need to do it right. So in many companies that's not the case, and I feel very lucky in that sense. I don't need to go to our founders, our board, our executive to say social impact is good for the company. This is what we're going to do. This they know that they truly believe um, that. For me, it's going to be more a matter of making sure that when product teams talk about product, they naturally involve us. When the sales team uses our stories in the sales pitch, making HR see us as part of their talent strategy, because as I said, you can um, not only retain but attract best talent because of social impact. And ultimately, when leadership includes impact as part of the business strategy, that's when I'll know the function has become durable. So it's gonna be more that not convincing leadership, but actually making sure that that conviction spreads across all function and it's really embedded in company strategy.
When you think about the work that you've been doing on your strategy, what advice would you give another practitioner who might be new to this field and maybe they're essentially where you were at one point in time where they're building their strategy for the very first time? What advice would you give that person in terms of getting started?
First, don't wait for the perfect strategy, but also don't confuse activity with strategy. Start, learn, measure what you're doing, refine based on those measurements, and repeat. So don't wait to start, don't wait for the perfect strategy. But once you've started, get it very clear. Don't confuse that program is not your strategy. Your strategy must be something bigger. And that's something easy to say, difficult to implement, and something I've been struggling for like 5 years. So, but it's an important part, and that's what the advice I would give anyone starting.
That is a great point. Activity does not equal strategy. When you think about the term strategy, How would you define the word?
To have a clear reason why we do the things that we do and not just doing. That's a little bit the strategy. And I don't mean, how do I say that? I don't mean that every social impact initiative automatically creates business value. That's not that's not the case. I also want to be realistic and not sound very, it doesn't mean that. But if it's disconnected from the company's purpose or treated as a marketing exercise, employees and customers will see through it very quickly. You're not going to succeed. It's going to pass. It's going to be one of the things that you do. And then someone 3 years along the road is going to remember, oh, remember it was nice. It was fun when we did that. But that's not strategy. The impact has to be authentic and it has to align with what the company generally stands for.
What about the challenges that you've experienced when it comes to building the strategy? What should a new practitioner understand about the challenges of building that impact strategy?
The challenges for me has really been defining strategy and making sure that that is understood and supported by the company. The biggest challenge in our role is to really make it a strategic, not for you in your role, but for the business. As I said, I didn't struggle to create a program. I didn't struggle to launch initiatives. I struggled to make them meaningful. And I don't mean meaningful, impactful. What we've done has created incredible impact in the communities we operate. I mean, I mean meaningful for online as a company. Because otherwise sounds repeated, but it's the social impact function will then be a satellite separate from the business that does great, measures impact, but there's no connection. Ultimately, if you disappear, nothing changes. You don't want that. Your impact changes. Yeah, the grants that you had and the volunteer initiative, that impact disappears, but nothing in the business disappears. Avoid that. If you disappear, HR should suffer, sales should suffer, leadership should suffer, customers should ask questions, partners need to ring your bell. Like that's the point I'm trying to communicate. And that's the biggest challenge. That's the biggest challenge for any social impact program or practitioner, from my point of view or from my experience.
It's the biggest challenge, but in my opinion, it's the thing that every practitioner should aspire to, and that's when you know you have a really durable function. When you're no longer there, then everyone feels the fact that you're no longer there, and the function is no longer there, and it impacts different sides of the business. That's how you know you have something that can stand the test of time, and that should be where every practitioner should want to get to. Absolutely.
And I wish I had known that building trust internally and externally, but specifically internally now talking, is more important than building programs. Programs can be launched in weeks and can be massive successful, like can be great. But trust takes years. But once leaders trust you, once employees trust you, now you're the boss. So focus also on that trust is another advice. I know you didn't ask me for another advice, Jeremy, but your reflection of my previous answer made me think of that trust issue or topic there.
No, trust is a big one. How do you build trust? Is it that you're following through on commitments? Is it something else?
Yeah, and transparency. I'm very clear on um, going back to my managers and to top leadership and say this didn't work. Look how much we failed, and then providing them with a thorough post-game analysis, identifying the root cause, and proposing new ideas on how to overcome those challenges. And that's how I build trust. Sometimes we trend, and I also do it. I'm not very good at it. try to highlight what went best and listen this great participation over here and try to hide what really didn't work well because in a week you need to ask for a budget for a new program and you want to show success so they continue. But trust is not building success; it's building unsuccessful uh, initiatives. That's something that I think builds real confidence and trust. Listen, we failed here. This is the reason. This is what I'm gonna do coming up. Oh, again, it didn't work. I was wrong. Hey, this is what numbers show. Let's build it differently. Let's change it radically. Or that, yeah, that's how I think trust is built.
It sounds very much like you are approaching the work of social impact as a strategic operator. You're somebody who understands the program side, but you're really in tune with how the work ladders up to the actual business. And you mentioned, being able to look at metrics, being able to talk about what's working and what's not working, and owning and being accountable when something is not working, and being able and communicating that with the rest of your team. It sounds very much like you are approaching the work from a very strategic lens.
And maybe that comes from my business background. Like in my previous jobs, not related to social impact, that's what you did. So now being in social impact and understanding the business, I know if I want to be successful and durable and still have a job in 3, 5, 10 years, that's what we need to do to link it as much as possible to business and to the business strategy.
You have an advantage over a lot of other practitioners because of your background. That being a strategic operator is something that I've been talking about for quite some time now, because I do believe in order for practitioners and the field of corporate impact to take that next step and to be a business discipline with the same strategic weight as a marketing organization or a sales organization, practitioners need to get to the level where they're seen as strategic operators. So the fact that you have that background and you intuitively know how to communicate your work in a strategic way that aligns with the business and that other people within the business can understand is a very unique thing that a lot of practitioners today don't have. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk more about the overall corporate impact landscape. And I've hinted at it a little bit, but one of the things that I'm seeing quite a bit is the conversation around driving business value. And I just mentioned where I believe that practitioners need to get to in order for the field to grow. From your vantage point and the work that you've been doing, what do you believe needs to happen within the social impact space to create a more durable profession?
The answer is a tough one. Um, to make social impact more durable, and I think it's more about who is talking about social impact inside the company and outside the company. Because if social impact is something that only the social impact team talks about, it's not going to be durable. But if social impact, as I said before, is something that is used in product development, in sales teams for their uh, sales pitch stories, in HR for you know uh, training and development, even seeing that as an opportunity, where leadership, when they talk about business decisions, that is something that naturally comes to them, then that's really durable because you don't need to constantly be selling what you're doing and every single program or initiative that you're launching to everyone. It's out there already. And when that's understood by all the whole organization, you're durable. It doesn't depend just on you because everyone depends on what you're doing to be successful. And the company basically takes you into consideration in their strategy to be successful, then you're durable.
If you can change one misconception that executives have about the corporate impact field or the work itself or even the role, what would it be?
The biggest misconception in corporate social impact is that corporate impact competes with business performance. That is something that you do once you have achieved business goals, and then you can do social impact. It's not true. Social impact can really drive value to a company, not only create societal positive impact in the communities you operate or the beneficiaries you are working with. It really can create value for your business. So that misconception is something that I would like to see eradicated, basically, that companies wait to be successful and to have extra um, budget or achieve the business goals first and then do social impact. And not to achieve your business goals, you need social impact.
Now let's look ahead 5, 7 years from now. What changes do you hope we'll see in the corporate impact profession?
Good question. I don't think it's change per se, more continuum, but I would love to see our profession become more collaborative. One of the things I've enjoyed most is as I said before, right? How willing people are open to share ideas and challenges and learn from each other. The lessons learned from one are beneficial for others. Communities that operate in corporate social impact help each other a lot. And I hope we can continue building a profession where we compete in business, but we collaborate in impact. Not only sharing um, best practices and learning from each other, but actually even collaborating in creating programs together. It's something that I would love to see also even at online, right? That we don't have an online program, but our program is part of some of our customers program of partners. We really work with incredible companies and we collaborate from a customer supplier perspective wonderfully, or from a you know tech partner or whatever partner it is, but we don't collaborate in social impact. That's something I would really like to see, that our suppliers, our customers that are so linked business-wise with us because they use our platform or because we use their services, that we can also put together our brains and put together our efforts and our unique capabilities to create social impact. That's something I would really like to see. And something I'm going to work for at Online Solutions.
All right, let's end with this question. What is something that you now know about corporate impact that you wish you would have known earlier in your career?
Like being a social impact practitioner, I wish I had known that building trust is it's the base, more important than building donation campaign, volunteering initiative, or something like that. And that it takes time and to insist and perseverance in building that trust, to be coherent on what you say with what you do, so that trust is not doesn't only come internally, but also with from the nonprofit sector and from customers and from partners, from the societies we work with. So I think that would be the part that has really been a learning journey for me. Because, I mean, we've talked a little bit about it, but when you start, you are full motivated, full speed. Hey, we're going to do this, that. And yeah, let's focus more on building that foundation on trust. And yeah, I would say that.
Carlos, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I'm excited for the work that you're doing, and I'm really curious to see where you take the social impact strategy for '09. I think you're on the right path. From the conversations that we obviously had in this for this podcast episode, but also the conversation we've had previously, I feel like your experience from previous roles is really additive to your current role, and you're closer than you think when it comes to being a strategic operator and advancing the work and building that durable function.
I really hope so. I've enjoyed a lot the conversation. Thank you very much again for having me, and let's keep the conversation alive.
This episode is brought to you by Social Impact World, the intelligence layer for corporate impact. To learn more, go to socialimpactworld.com. I'm Jeremy Brown. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Behind the Impact.